Are you trying to dominate your fantasy football league? Do you want so many championship rings it's impossible to sign autographs? Well, crack open a beer, pour yourself a glass of bourbon, and settle in, because you've come to the right place. Welcome to Hammercast.
Welcome to the Double D's podcast, which is part of the Hammercast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Coleman. On this episode of the podcast, we have special guest Brandon Hay from the LeagueWinners.com and the IDP guys to talk about our Michigan Wolverines. Brandon, thanks for coming on. And why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you and maybe some recent content that you guys have put out.
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Kevin. And so I have some article. Well, first of all, Twitter, you can find me on HayB3. That's HAYE B3. And then I've been writing last couple months for the LeagueWinners.com. So we most of mine has been either Devy or rookie kind of write-ups, but we have everything. You know, we have some IDP articles on there too. Yeah. And recently, yesterday, I accepted a role with IDP guys. So I'll be doing all the offensive write-ups on Superflex leagues and tight end premium leagues. So you can find me, on there hopefully soon.
Yeah, you gotta love those IDP guys. They do a good job. Definitely check out their content. But what we're here for today is it's kind of a depressing talk because we're going to be talking about my Michigan Wolverines, and we're looking at a Devy outlook. So we're looking at the Michigan Wolverines. We're going to be going over their last season, Harbaugh's tenure, pretty much everything. And this is really just for me and Brandon here to just get out our sorrows because we've had to watch this team now for pretty much this whole century, Brandon, and it's been a rough 21 years. Why don't we start with first? What are your thoughts? We finished 2-4 last year. It was a terrible year. COVID wiped us out. What are your thoughts on last year's season?
So it was pretty normal for what Michigan does to me. They get my hopes up, and then they dash them pretty quickly. After I came in with low expectations. Then the Minnesota game raised my expectations. I thought this offense was finally going to go. We had some good defensive players. Then pretty early on in the game against Sparty, when Michigan State was not very good last year and we struggled and ended up losing that game. Yeah. I was pretty mad, and then we lost Penn State, and then all the COVID happened. So pretty much after that Michigan State game, I kind of wanted the season to be over. So when COVID did strike and we didn't have to be embarrassed by Ohio State, that was not that bad to me. So I was ready for it to be over.
Man, I was so excited after that Minnesota game. And I even wrote a Joe Milton breakout article, and I put it on our website because I thought, hey, we have a quarterback. We finally have a quarterback. I was so excited for it, and then, of course, I jinxed it, and we ended up having a terrible year. And obviously we know Minnesota wasn't good. We thought Minnesota was a lot better. And then we played Rutgers and had to beat them in 3 overtimes. And that's embarrassing enough to say it is. We had to go to Rutgers. So I agree there. It was a rough year. COVID kind of wiped us out at the end. If we would have played Ohio State, I think they would have put 100 points on us. It would have been a train wreck out there. Let's get to Harbaugh. So there's a lot of – it depends. I don't know what kind of Michigan fan you are. There's some that like Harbaugh, and then there are some that definitely don't like Harbaugh. He's 49-22 in his tenure there, which isn't bad. His best win probably is the Citrus Bowl against Florida, which isn't good. What are your opinions of Harbaugh? How do you think he's done there?
So I would argue maybe the win against Wisconsin, the year of the fourth down, might be his best win, but I guess bowl-wise, the Florida. I was actually at that Florida game, so that was nice. I was with some Gator fans, so that was nice. But I like Harbaugh. I think something happened after that 2016 year. I don't know if someone told him to calm it down, but he doesn't seem like the same guy. And my thinking is I've told a lot of people this, a lot of my friends, if Harbaugh can't do it, I don't know who we're bringing in. Yeah. Like, I know, we want to do better, but who are we bringing in? If the golden guy coming back, the Michigan man can't do it, then who's going to come in? And I remember the Brady Hoke and the Rich Rod years, so at least it's not that bad.
Brady Hoke, Brandon. That puts a shiver down my spine there. Let me ask you this, because I'm in the same agreement as you. Harbaugh's the best we can get. Who else are we going to bring in here? Matt Campbell's not coming here. There's other guys that aren't going to come here. I'm under the understanding of, like, I think that Michigan fans have an overestimation. They have too high of expectations for us. I actually think, like, what Harbaugh did that first year, where he went, I think it was 11-2, won the Citrus Bowl. We competed for a Big Ten championship. That's kind of our ceiling. Would you agree, or do you think we should be competing for national championships every year?
So I guess I'm kind of on the fence on both sides. One, that's all we've ever been. We got lucky. We got lucky and had Charles Woodson in '97. But other than that, and we were lucky in the '90s when Ohio State wasn't nearly as good. Now they're really good, so we can't compete. But I think we should be able to compete every now and then to at least beat Ohio State and win the Big Ten. But I do think the expectations of Michigan fans, they are into this, the traditions, the everything about Bo and everything. That's fine if they want to keep those traditions and play like Bo used to play. That's fine. But we're getting left in the dust. We already have. And we're still trying to, recover from that.
I mean, the reality is we've won 4 bowl games this whole century since 2000. That's who we are. We won an Outback Bowl, a Capital Bowl, a Sugar Bowl, and a Citrus Bowl. And I think we have too high of expectations sometimes as Michigan fans. We think that we should be competing for national championships. I think every once in a while, like you said, if we have a good class, I think that's definitely a possibility. But Ohio State's better than us, and they're way farther than us, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Their roster better than I do. And when I was going through our roster today, or this week, to get prepared for this, I wanted to throw up in my mouth a little bit, Brandon, because compared to Ohio State's roster, I'm just staring at it, and I'm just like, they're so far ahead of us, and it's definitely a scary thing when I'm looking at it. What do you think about the coaching staff we've kind of assembled? I've been down on Don Brown forever. I'm glad he's finally gone. Josh Gaddis, I don't know what I have with them. Do you think we have a coaching staff moving forward that we're going to see succeeding, or are we just kind of in the middle again?
So I liked Don Brown the first couple of years, and I think his aggressive play style was great. For when Harbaugh came in, but I think once some of those players graduated, he loves those Northeastern guys, and they just aren't very good. And then when we got embarrassed by Ohio State in that 2018 game, scheme-wise, he thought we just needed to get smaller, when in reality, he just needed to learn how to play zone defense. So we got smaller on the line, so now we get pushed around by Wisconsin, Penn State, and all those teams. Gaddis, I was excited about, but I've heard rumors about, he doesn't really know what he's doing. The new coaching staff, I kind of like what Harbaugh did. He kind of got a lot of younger guys. He brought in Ron Bellamy, who's big in Michigan high schools, ex-Michigan player, trying to get the recruiting up, and he's already done that. So because if we don't, kind of catch up a little bit with Ohio State recruiting, which we're so far behind, it doesn't matter how good of a coach Harbaugh is or anyone on the staff, because we're just not going to be able to scheme past, all the athletes and that they have.
Yeah, you're right. And I think it's hard to scheme against those guys. And we did get smaller. And I think my biggest problem with Don Brown, and every time I watched it, I just could not stand how much man-to-man the guy played when we just didn't have the athletes to go against the athletes that they were facing. And he would always blitz, and we just didn't have the athletes to cover those guys. Ohio State, these other guys, we just didn't have those. I agree with you there. It was a frustrating thing. And as much as I don't want to talk about Ohio State, we have to talk about Ohio State series. We're going to mention a couple games where we got screwed on. But since 2000 – our last win came in 2011. We've only won 3 times this basically the last 21 years. We still lead the series, though. So, hey, you know what? 58-51, we got to love those 90s and, the old school, 40. We're leading the series. But you kind of mentioned a little bit about recruiting classes and those type of things. Before we talk about the 2016 game, which we got screwed because it was a first down, do you think we're ever going to be able to get back into that? I know these things go ebb and flows, but they are so far ahead of us, man.
I just don't see, because we kind of took the 90s, and then they have really taken all the 2000s. But the thing is, it's the gap's widening. Even in the 90s, they were close games. They're just blowing us out and just pretty much embarrassing us.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be totally honest. I don't even know when we win again. Like, if you told ask me if in 10 years how many times will we win, I might say 1 if we get lucky. Something might change, but as of right now, I just don't see us being able to compete with them, consistently.
I agree. I'm so depressed when you hear that, because I don't know the next time we're going to win either. I don't know about you, but I really hate watching the game. Like, it makes me sad inside because I know it's just going to disappoint me, and I know that I'm going to get upset. I actually thought the last 2 years ago or I think it was 2 years ago, when we actually had a shot at halftime, they had the fumble, we were right there, and then they just blew us out in the second half. That was probably one of the most devastating losses to me. But we're going to talk about the 2016 game. First of all, was that a first down or not? That's what I want to. What is your opinion?
I say it is not a first down.
Yes.
But I will say that I do understand them not overturning the call. And it should never come to that, but I feel like I know this is going to just sound bad, but I feel like we always get screwed by Ohio State and the refs. Consistently.
I would agree. I think they have their bag man, and you know what? And I don't care, all my Ohio State fans out there. You guys pay off the refs, because that was not a first down, and we should have won that game. But like you said, we had plenty of opportunities that game. We did not play very well down the stretch. I know you have a story about that. Where were you when you were watching that game?
So yeah, I was at a bar. It's called Whiskey Jats. It's more of a restaurant, but. So there's a big Michigan group that always go there. And for that game, we had like 200 people there. So we're watching the game. And as I told you before the show, I thought when we were up by 10, they couldn't move the ball. We had it. I bought a couple guys some fireball shots. And then everything continued. And we ended up losing. And I was super pissed. So I took my hat and glasses and threw them down on the ground. And they ricocheted and hit 2 waitresses. So the owner started yelling at me and then kicked me out of the bar. So it was not a good day.
Yeah, I don't remember last time I could celebrate a Michigan win, to be honest. Maybe the Penn State game. That game, I remember I was driving home after Thanksgiving in Vegas. I actually went to Vegas. I was hungover, and I thought we were going to win. I just in the car with my now wife, and it was a bad day. So I don't know the next time we're going to beat Ohio State. They're loaded. We are not. I'm hoping that with this recruiting class, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, that we have a shot now. Maybe we're on the right track because it's one of our highest rated recruiting classes under Harbaugh. But all right, enough with Ohio State. I hate that team. Let's move on. Now we're going to talk about some pro prospects that we like that are coming out. So let's talk about some rookies that we like. We're going to go a little IDP because we got to give my IDP some shout outs out there. But the first guy is Nico Collins. What do you think of Nico?
I love Nico, and it really killed me that he didn't play last year because I was so excited he was coming back. And I just think the scheme-wise and quarterback-wise, we did him a terrible disservice. He should have gotten the ball way more. I think he can be a very good player. I think he gets kind of pegged as just, a contested catch guy, but I think, he has good enough speed and, refining some of the route running, and he has great hands. So I think, it sounds like he might go 3rd or 4th round, but I think if he goes to the right team, it could be a real steal if he gets natural quarterback, because Shea Patterson was horrible and the offense was just horrible too.
I know. Shea Patterson. God, I gave him so much credit. I would say the thing about Nico I like, he's big, 6'4", 215. I think he can be a vertical threat out there, and you really can't judge any of these guys from Michigan. Their offense is terrible. That's why I have Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's one of my favorite, by the way. He's one of my favorite Wolverines ever. Donovan Peoples-Jones can be a very good NFL player. I still believe it, and it's because that Michigan just doesn't develop talent at that position, and we just don't do a good job with our quarterbacks. So I think Collins is kind of a breakout candidate. I think he's someone that you can probably get the 4th round of your rookie drafts, depending on where his draft capital is. And I would take a shot at him. He's well-rounded. I think he translates pretty well. He should have a pretty immediate role in the NFL. So Nico, to me, I think that he's going to be able to fit in any X receiver type and any vertical threat, and I think that he could be a good guy. So Nico Collins, for me, is a buy. I actually like him. Now, I might be biased, and you might be biased, but I think that I'm rooting for him because we didn't do him any good at Michigan. We just didn't. So I mean, if you could think off the top of your head as far as wide receivers, when's the best wide receiver we've had in the past 15 years? Braylon Edwards.
Oh, that's so sad, but yeah. I mean, I love Braylon. Braylon's a knucklehead, but I loved him at Michigan. We've had receivers I've really liked, but our offense is just never taken advantage of that. And, I'm going to be totally honest, I don't know why offensive players come to Michigan. I mean, bless their heart for coming there, and but I would go anywhere else right now if I was a receiver, quarterback, running back.
Yeah. Now we're going to talk about them. What is your opinion of Kwity Paye? Because I've seen him go in some mocks really high, and I don't believe in Kwity Paye. I've watched him now. I think he's overrated as a prospect. I think he's a little smaller than I would like to see. What do you think of Kwity?
I'm kind of thinking you looked at my notes because that's the same exact thing. I mean, his name's real fun to say. There's a guy that went to the Michigan games that he would love yelling his name. I think he's a good run defender. But it's hard to say because we don't really develop great defensive line talent. Look with Rashawn Gary. He's doing great things in the NFL now. But I saw some mocks where they say Kwity Paye was like top 10 pick. And if that happens, that would be unbelievable to me.
Yeah, I'm a Cowboy fan too, by the way. So I've had my fair share of heartbreak. But if they draft Kwity Paye, I will not be a Cowboy fan because they just can't. I'm not doing the taco thing again with Taco Charlton. I just cannot with those guys. I feel like he's a big stay away from me. Kwity Paye is someone that I don't want. I think that if he was going in the second round, that's much more valuable, but he's going to get overdrafted because the DN class is a little lower in this class. And so he's just not someone I want. The other guy is Nick Eubanks. Do you have any faith in Nick Eubanks to be any relevant at all?
Well, I did do one of my first articles was kind of just, I called it the underutilized Wolverines. And Eubanks, I kind of did a little blurb because I don't think we ever used him. I don't know if he's any good, but he's like kind of got that athletic style where if some team, he's probably undrafted, so you won't have to worry about him in rookie drafts. But maybe someone you pick up off waivers, if he joins a team and has a spot, and then maybe he kind of does something like Logan Thomas. It took Logan Thomas a few years. Yeah. Not saying he's going to do that, but. Tight end is such a wasteland. If you can find a guy that you can stash for a little while, have the room, I would say, he's as good as any, with his athleticism and everything.
Yeah, Nick, he's 6'5", 256. He's a massive boy. If he can find a role, he's someone that, like you said, I don't know necessarily where he's going to go. But if he goes to a tight end needy team, which I feel like every damn franchise out there needs a tight end, if Nick can go to find a role, he might be, but he's that undrafted. Maybe you grab him if you have big benches, rosters, dynasty, you can maybe grab him. What we're going to go to now is some transfers because we've had definitely a lot of transfers here in Michigan. That's definitely something that we've actually had a lot of. I just want you could pick one of these guys. I definitely want to talk about Charbonnet, but what is your opinion? McCaffrey, Milton, should they have transferred? Do you see any of them being a pro prospect at all or anything like that?
As far as McCaffrey and Milton, I don't see any pro prospects. I know a lot of Michigan fans have been wanting Joe Milton to play, and they got it last year, and it was not great. I think he has a strong arm. He always was going to be a developmental type guy. So if he goes to a smaller, G5 school, I think he could do all right, but I don't think he's going to do much in the NFL. And as far as Dylan McCaffrey, great runner. He just has a small frame, and he would always get hurt. So, I don't think either of those really translate to the NFL that much.
That's fair, right? When we're looking at like Milton, I think the unfortunately Minnesota game, I was higher on Milton. We don't know where he's transferring yet. We don't actually know where he's going, but you got Milton, McCaffrey. Yeah, I'm done with McCaffrey. The guy that I really want to know is Charbonnet, because I actually got to watch Charbonnet play it at high school. So he was a California boy, and I could not believe he went to Michigan because it's cold in there. And us California guys, I know I can't do the cold. And I was really worried about it because he was actually a prospect I actually kind of liked in high school, and he played pretty well. And then, he goes to Michigan. He has an up and down kind of freshman year. He was injured. He had a high ankle sprain. He looked okay. Last year, he just didn't see the field. He ends up transferring to UCLA. What is your opinion of him? Because a lot of Devy guys that I know, some really respected Devy guys, they still like him, where they're drafting him in the first 4 or 5 rounds, to where I think I'm just Michigan burnt, where I'm not touching him. So what do you see with Charbonnet?
So, yeah, his freshman year, I was up and down on him because he was hurt. He kind of looked a little slow, but, he did have that injury. Then that Minnesota game, he had, like a 50 or 60-yard run. And then for some reason, we just decided that we didn't want to run him. Our running back rotation was crazy last year. I looked, and Joe Milton, led us in carries, the first 4 games, which is crazy. But I'm glad Charbonnet transferred because I think he does have some talent. I'm not as high on him, but I could see him, taking him and Devy, in the, 3rd or 4th round, just based on, coming out and being, a high star guy and showing some flashes. And he should, get a lot of carries, I would think, at UCLA. So I could see the upside with him. Yeah,
I think he's going to go. He went in the 5th round. I think that's a fair round. So if you're in a Devy draft, or if you're in especially the running back position, because I think there's a clear tier break. After all those sophomores go, then it's kind of like, okay, who am I going to draft? And I like Charbonnet. He went right after Donovan Edwards, which is funny to me. So they went right next to each other in there. And like you said, I think Charbonnet is going to get carries. I just want to see him now. Now, his freshman year, he had 700 yards and 8 touchdowns. 11 touchdowns, and he had 149 carries. So he did pretty good for a true freshman at Michigan. So we could see something like that. He only got 19 carries last year, 124 yards. He just didn't get the. I don't mind. I agree that he needed a transfer because he obviously wasn't getting it with Harbaugh. So again, I think Charbonnet is a good kind of play if you want to grab somebody in that 5th round ish area. All right, let's talk about our depth chart. So what we're going to do now is we're going to break down our Devy potential from this group. And I'm going to warn you guys, there's the Devy potential in this group is very risky. So there's some risk in these picks that we're going to be talking about today. And I want to know kind of for you, I just wrote an article for Fantasy Pros on Big Ten sleepers, and I included a quarterback named J.J. McCarthy. I'm sorry already, Brandon, if I jinxed him for his career based on me writing this. But I'm a big believer in JJ. So right now, their quarterback positions, right now with their talent, they got Mcnammara, returner, McCarthy, and then they got Alan Bowman from Texas Tech, which for some reason he transferred to Michigan. So who do you think is the front runner there? Who wins the job? Who has the most value? What do you think about this group?
So I just want to say, when I saw on Twitter the transfer about Bowman, I think my wife was like, "What's wrong?" Because I just threw my hands in the air and I was like, "I don't know what we're doing." Because I know it's a different guy, but it just reminded me of when we got John O'Corn from Houston, and Harbaugh talked him up, and then he was horrible. So the only Devy guy of those 3 that I want is McCarthy. Mm-hmm. I did watch some of his tape last night in preparation for this, and the only thing is he went to IMG his senior year, and all the athletes they had there, I just kind of wonder, how that translates. But it looked like, he isn't the fastest, but he is mobile. He has some good touch on his passes. I think Mcnammara will start next year, and I'm okay with that because I think he's decent, and they just need a guy that can get the ball to people, the right people, and let the athletes kind of go. But I think eventually, if it was my decision, I would just go with McCarthy because, that's who you should be going with the rest of his 3 years. So why not just let him get some run early on?
Yeah, I agree. I think McNamara might get the nod just because Harbaugh does that. But, I mean, let's face it. You and me both know the reason why Harbaugh still has a job is because he got McCarthy to come to Michigan. He's one of the top-rated quarterbacks in this that he's ever had. I really feel like with McCarthy and Edwards, who we'll talk about in a minute, they have that. Now, I want you to think I wrote this article, and I have a comp for him. And I want you to think if I'm crazy. If you watched film last night, I said Matthew Stafford light. So I said that he reminds me of a younger Matthew Stafford, what I saw at Georgia. Is that crazy? Am I a Michigan just apologist, or do you see that at any point?
I'll say it's a little crazy. I can see a little bit of it because he does. I think he has a good, strong arm. He likes to throw the ball down the field, and it's funny. One of the things I wrote down was, I know this is cliche, but I wrote down gunslinger. Because I think he does look like a gunslinger, and that's kind of what Stafford was. Let me tell you, if he turns out to be Matthew Stafford, I would be ecstatic. That'd be the best quarterback we've had since probably Chad Henne, in 20 years.
Yeah. So that's the thing. I think, I was looking at it, and when I wrote my article, I was looking at, we got Chad Henne. After that, it was Denard Robinson, who I love. I love me some Denard Robinson. Do not get me wrong, but him being one of our best quarterbacks just kind of makes me sad. Or John Navarre, like those are the three best quarterbacks that we had in this era. I think McCarthy. I know it's high praise to give me a Matthew Stafford call out, and I know Detroit guy and all that. But I think with the way he kind of can sling the ball, like you said, I think he has some creativity within the pocket, kind of like Stafford does. It's a little underrated. He can escape. He has some escapability. So for me, when I watch the tape, I think in the red zone, his arm, what he can do, he can fit in the tight windows. I'm comfortable drafting McCarthy in that 8 to 10 round range, because of his talent, of where he's at, especially in C2C leagues. If you want to, he's one of those freshmen who I think has the opportunity to start right away. It is a little risky pick, but where would you take him? Where do you feel like in that quarterback spot in the rounds? Where would you grab him at?
So let me just preface this by, I just joined I took an orphan for a C2C league this year, and we had our freshman draft, and I didn't know this, but I guess there's a lot of Michigan homers in this league, because J.J. McCarthy in the freshman draft was taken 5th, which I thought was way too high. So, yeah. So I think, what you're saying, the 8 to 10 range, I think that's good. I don't have a problem taking him I would definitely take probably 5 or 6 of the freshman quarterbacks above him, So I guess it depends on, the type of league and how many Devy picks there really are. But I think he has upside, but I still probably would choose other quarterbacks to other schools that have shown a better development of quarterbacks.
Yeah, that's valid. Let me throw out some names. So just to kind of gauge my kind of where you're at, because I don't know how much you know about Haynes King from Texas A&M. Would you rather have Haynes King, or would you rather have J.J. McCarthy?
To be honest, I haven't watched a ton of Haynes King, but I would tend to go with McCarthy because I just feel like he has more upside. Just from what I saw with Kellen Mond and Jameis, it doesn't seem like Jimbo really elevates those quarterbacks. They kind of just, they get to a certain level and they kind of, just plateau. Not that Harbaugh's done any better, but I think McCarthy's very highly ranked, and, he went to IMG to, kind of show out. So I would take McCarthy in that situation.
Yeah, I'm a Haynes King kind of, I don't want to say truther, but I think that he's going to be pretty good, and he's going to start. And we know Haynes King is going to start. So if I'm in a C2C league, I'm probably going to lean towards King. If I'm in a Devy league, I might lean towards McCarthy just because I think he may be a better pro prospect, but I'm still worried about it. Like, I'm still not and I don't know about you, I tend to not take Michigan guys because I don't want to be disappointed even more than I already am. So sometimes I get a little when I'm drafting, I definitely don't want to take those guys. But overall, I think you're right. I think that we're going to see McNamara come out, but I don't think McNamara or Bowman have any Devy value. I think McCarthy is pretty much the only one that I consider having value at that position. let's go to the running back position. This again it gets a little crammed in there. You got Hassan Haskins, Donovan Edwards, who's a true freshman who I really like. I do like him as a runner. Blake Corum. Who do you think wins the job? I'm kind of leaning towards Haskins. Where's your Devy value? Because Edwards is going way higher than Haskins in most Devy drafts. So what do you think about this position?
So I think Devy-wise, I would pick Edwards because I think he has the highest ceiling for the NFL. But for C2C, I think Haskins would be a good pick late, probably after the guys you're trying to get to the NFL, because I think he's going to have a lot of production at Michigan this year. But I think Edwards is going to share some of that. And Corum, I hope they're going to finally utilize him correctly, how they should have utilized Chris Evans, more outside runs, in the slot more, because he's more of a complement back. I just think Edwards is going to finally take over most of that. I don't think Haskins will totally go away because he's actually pretty good, and the coaching staff seems to really like him.
Yeah, I like Haskins. Haskins scores touchdowns, so they're gonna use Haskins in that role. I like Edwards. Edwards is it's so funny. Edwards was really highly touted, and then he chose Michigan, and now his value just dropped. It's funny how that works, because when you watch it, I saw him. He has good burst. He's good acceleration. He's a one cut and go guy. So when you look at our scheme, I think he actually does fit our scheme pretty well. He's pretty good pass catcher. He's a pretty good blocker. He's a pretty complete prospect. So when you look at Edwards, I don't see a lot more growth. He's going to get bigger. I think he's at that 190 mark right now. He'll probably get to the 200, 205, which I'd like to see. I don't necessarily think he's going to be an amazing NFL prospect, but he's going to be a very solid runner. So if I'm looking at it from that perspective, it depends on where you want to grab him. I saw him go in the 5th round. That's tend to be where I've seen him go, 5th or 6th round in C2C and Devy drafts. That might be a little bit too high for me, but this running back class these running backs it's very hard to determine who you want to grab. So, I would probably take Edwards over maybe DeMonte Trautman from Arizona State, just because based on talent and just because I think that he's a better overall back. Where do you, 5th round seem good, 6th round, where are you risking it here?
I think 5th is a little too high for me, just because Michigan with their backfield, they did just hire, our boy Mike Hart. So and he's done some good things at Indiana and I think Eastern Michigan. And what he likes to do is he likes to go with one main running back. The only problem is, we don't know which main running back that's going to be. But I believe Haskins only has one more year. So, at the worst, then that means Edwards could get into that next year. So I would probably take him in 7th, 8th round in either Devy or C2C. I just would trust other places. Arizona State has had some good running backs come through there, and I think their offense is going to be pretty potent. So I would probably take him over Edwards.
Okay. I mean. That's fair in terms of what we're looking at with Edwards. I like him. If anybody can make Michigan run again, it's got to be Edwards. If someone's going to come in there and be that guy, I think Edwards has got to be it. I mean, this class is it for Harbaugh. If this class doesn't hit, he's done. They have to have it, and he's the type of runner that I think he is. So if you have Donovan Edwards, I don't mind reaching a little bit if you think he's going to get that production, like you said. I'm glad you gave our boy Mike Hart a shout out. That's my guy. I love Mike Hart. Except for the Appalachian State game that I don't want to talk about. But that area, is good. They're finally getting some development guys in there. All right, now let's go to this wide receiver class, and it's a mess. I was trying to go through my rankings and look, and it's literally, I don't know about you, but when I'm looking at all of these wide receivers, I wrote down, I think, 8 or 9. They're all the same damn wide receiver. There's really no difference. They all have the same similar profile. Now, I only put 3 up, but there's plenty more. You got Ronnie Bell, Giles Jackson, who I really liked. Xavier Worthy, who I was on a podcast a couple days ago where I had somebody actually bring him up, and they love him. Now, he's small. He's from my neck of the woods over here in Fresno. I love what he has been able to kind of do here. But again, this group I worry about just because they did there. A.J. Henning, these guys, who do you think emerges from this group? Do you believe in Worthy, or what are we doing with this wide receiver class?
So I think it's been hard to tell. Well, last year with the shortened season and just with as we keep on beating a dead horse, but the horrible quarterback play. I actually think Ronnie Bell is very underrated. I think he's a good wide receiver. I think he could make it in the NFL. Obviously not a high guy, but, middle to late rounds and stick with a team. I think C2C wise, I think he could be a steal, because he could give you very solid production. I love Giles Jackson if they could just use him right. Like last year, they were using him as like a possession receiver, which I never understood. Like in the Ohio State game 2 years ago when they, kind of gave him a toss pass and he ran for a touchdown. They need to do more things like that in the spread, just get him out in space. I was watching Xavier Worthy, and I really liked him, but he did seem small, so I kind of wonder how much playing time he'll actually get, based on it, how small he is. And like you said, they got Henning, they got Roman Wilson, they got all these players that are very similar, so they might go with the ones that have actually been there. But I think Xavier Worthy would be a good stash for Devy or C2C.
Yeah, so I was looking at these wide receivers, and I love that you brought up that you like Ronnie Bell and Giles Jackson. I think Giles Jackson is definitely underrated. Xavier, man, yeah, he's small. So if we're looking at Xavier, for those of you that don't know maybe who he is, he's 6'1", 160. But damn, he's fast, Brandon. Like every time I see him touch the ball, if we could just get him out in open space, I mean, he dominated here in Fresno where he was at. If we can get him, and the thing I like is that we beat out Alabama for him. So Alabama was his second school, and Michigan doesn't beat Alabama in pretty much anything, but especially recruits. So we did beat out that. Now that could have been because Alabama has one of the craziest wide receiver classes I've ever seen in my life, but we still beat them out. And so I think that we have that high recruiting class there. I like Xavier. I think Xavier can step in and kind of be that big value, and especially in Devy drafts. I've been in a couple mock drafts, and I have not seen them go in the first 15 rounds. I have not seen a wide receiver from Michigan go in the first 15 rounds. If you're in a C2C league, that's great value because you're going to get a starter. They're going to throw the ball to someone, and McCarthy can maybe grow with these guys. In a Devy draft, I don't mind. It depends how big your Devy drafts are. Usually 10 is about the max for some Devys that I'm in. But if you can get those guys in those late rounds, man, I'm all about it. I think that Xavier is probably the best value of this group. Now, tight ends, gosh, this is I'm going to let you do this because I was looking at the tight ends. I even put it on the notes. I was like, I don't know what's there. I actually put in the notes, man, we are bad. I don't necessarily know if there's any relevant Devy talent in here. Is there any guy that stands out to you at all in this group, or is this going to be a quick segment?
It's probably going to be pretty quick. I think it was last year, them talking up Eric All, but, I mean, they seem to talk up everyone and no one shows on the field. I know Hansen, who's coming in as a freshman. I know on 247 they had him as a top 10 freshman tight end. I know it's tight ends, but at least he's up there. But it is surprising with how much Harbaugh likes to use tight ends. Maybe that shows them switching to more of the spread type offense, even though they haven't been very successful at it. But yeah, these guys, until you see someone, I wouldn't touch any of these tight ends for Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, Eric All is – I watched his tape. He's got pretty exciting tape. He played wide receiver a little bit in high school. He's a big kid. But the best thing I saw in his tape was that he's an amazing blocker. And that just scares me for Devy because that just means that's what Harbaugh is going to do. That's his blocking. That's kind of what he is. I know that Louis Hansen's there. I don't think any of these guys are Devy relevant talent. I probably wouldn't draft these guys even in C2C leagues with 45 rounds. There's just nothing there yet that shows you that these are guys you're going to waste, because these are guys that you could pick up on the waiver wire in those leagues and grab them later if they do try to advance. I don't think there's anybody there worth grabbing early or even in the 40th, 50th, or 45th round, depending on what kind of.
Yeah, I tend to agree on that. I just think you could go to, others, especially C2C, in some of the G5 schools or even, independents or however low you want to get more, because since Jake Butt has left Michigan, like the tight end position really hasn't been that successful, which is surprising with Harbaugh. But yeah, I would do a wait and see and maybe pick up some of these guys on the waivers, after the first couple games.
Man, I'm glad you brought up Jake Butt. If he didn't tear his ACL, I still believe Jake Butt would have been. I actually still think I have Jake Butt in a few taxi squads rolling around out there somewhere. I still believed in Jake Butt. If he didn't hurt himself, I still thought that maybe he would have been talented. Don't you agree? Jake Butt did have some value.
Oh, I totally agree, and I was right with you on the taxi squads. Even when he tore his ACL again, I was like, but once the Broncos got Noah Fant, I was like, oh, it's over. It's over for him. But yeah, I was very disappointed because, he came back, and to get hurt in that bowl game. Ever since that game, my thoughts of players sitting out of bowl games has totally changed because he did, everything right, and then to get hurt like that. I mean, I totally understand them sending out games now. That doesn't really upset me anymore.
Yeah, you say, hey, why are you sitting out? And then it happens to one of your guys that you feel like they could be talented at next level, and it really hits home. And I agree with you. That has shifted for me too. Like, I'm kind of like, hey, until you pay these guys what they're worth, I don't care if they sit out. That's on them, especially in a meaningless. I mean, come on, Michigan. Citrus Bowl. Like, I don't want some dude to tear his ACL at Citrus Bowl. We go to Citrus Bowl, the Outback Bowl every year. Like, if they're going to compete, let's go for that the final four groups, the playoff, whatever. Now, what I will say is we see a little hope. So what we're going to talk about, we've already talked about a few freshmen, but there's a little bit more. There is some hope on the horizon. We have seen in 2021 recruiting class, it's ranked 10th nationally. I don't know if you can believe that, Brandon, but we're actually in the 10th nationally and the second in the Big Ten. So we actually, obviously Ohio State passed us, but we're in that mode. We actually had a pretty good class. I thought we did pretty well with what we were looking at and our guys. So we've already kind of mentioned, Donovan and J.J. McCarthy and Xavier Worthy. But are there any guys that I've mentioned a couple, but are there any other guys that have stood out to you in that class that you are looking forward to? It could be linemen, defensive linemen, or any of those guys.
So, I was kind of looking at some tape of Christian Dixon. I think as a wide receiver, another thing, a logjam there. But I think he probably won't play this year. But he looked like he might be able to take over that Ronnie Bell type role, once he graduates. Mm-hmm. And then we finally, changed from Don Brown and finally got some big old defensive tackles. So Rayshon Benny and George Rooks, I think, could provide something in there that, unless you're doing IDP, with Devy, you might not know much about them, but I think that could improve the defense as a whole, and then free up some space for some of the good linebackers like Michael Barrett, and to kind of help out that defense because not only was the offense bad last year, the defense was horrible too. So hopefully all that improves.
Yeah, it's funny because every year we always say, we have a good defense. And then last year we found out like, what could happen when we don't have a good defense? So I will say there's one, I'm not everybody knows that listens to me and does podcasts. I know I'm really bad at defense, but I like Jaden Hood, linebacker that we got from St. Thomas Aquinas in Florida. Okay, and he's 6'1", 212. He's a linebacker that we desperately needed. We beat out Alabama again. What is up, Alabama? You guys cannot beat Michigan on the recruiting trail. And I like him. I think that he's solid linebacker that we have. Another guy I like that we kind of shirt on. We always do a pretty good job of grabbing some offensive linemen. Giovanni El Hadi, offensive tackle. He's 6'5", 285. He's from Michigan. He was the number 4 rated Michigan player, 11th overall. I think he's big, he's strong, and he's going to be good for outside rushers. He's there probably to protect J.J. McCarthy. He'd probably be his future kind of left tackle. I'm assuming they'll move him to left tackle. So I think Michigan did a damn good job of reloading. I think that they hit where they needed to go. We got a big center, Raheem Anderson, like you talked about with the defensive tackles. I do like, I love modern day guys. So Christian Dixon, like you mentioned, he's from modern day, my neck of the woods. Guys that have high profile high schools and what they do. I know they play big talent. So I'm actually, hey, you know what? I don't want to jinx it, but this class makes me excited. This is a class that you need to kind of get not ahead of Ohio State, but you got to compete with them. Wouldn't you agree that this class does that? It kind of gets us on that right track?
No, I would definitely agree. The only thing that because a lot of players have transferred out of Michigan, a lot of I think good recruits, linebacker recruits, similar to what you were talking about with Hood. I don't really know why that is. Hopefully, with the change of scheme and the change in coaching, they'll get more guys on the field because they just need to get more athletic on the field, just to keep up with the teams like Ohio State. So. But yeah, I think this recruiting class showed that they at least understand they need to get better on offense, quicker. So I do really like this class, and hopefully this will help them, kind of bridge the gap just a little bit.
Yeah, so I agree. I think that recruiting class, this is where we have to go. We got to get in that top 10 nationally every year if we want to try to keep with Ohio State. That's where we have to be, is that top 10 class. So I'm glad, and I think they got jumped up with our offensive weapons. Well, we're going to move on to, the last part of this, which we're going to be talking about some, defensive players to watch or your biggest question marks and predictions. So we'll kind of do it all as we go. So, again, I don't have a ton of defensive players because I'll be honest, I'm a kind of offensive snob. Now, there's some defensive guys that I like watching, but I've been so down on Michigan, it's hard for me to watch these games all the time. Are there any defensive guys that you're looking forward to watch, or what are your biggest question marks heading into 2021? Either one of those.
So really, for IDP and for Devy purposes, the only one that I'm really interested is Dats Hill. They play him at safety, but I personally think they should move him to corner because all of our other corners suck, and I think he has some real pro potential. He actually decommitted from Michigan, went to Alabama, and then decommitted from Alabama and went back to Michigan, which I think he probably regrets that now. But, and the things I'm kind of looking for is if they're going to improve on scheme, kind of look like, they're, at least on offense, they're trying to, make a point of plays, not just run random plays, and just get these players the ball and just see what they can do. I'm fine if, teams like Ohio State are better than us, but it's just we consistently look like we don't know what we're doing. And, as long as we can at least have some strategic, scheme, I would be happy with that going forward.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think we want to have a scheme and just competing, right? That's all I really want to see is us competing and being in games. My biggest question marks, I'll go first on this, is the quarterback position is who's gonna win that job. Because I think everybody knows college football comes down to where your quarterback position. And how well is Harbaugh going to translate into can he coach these quarterbacks up? And everybody usually kind of pairs Harbaugh with Andrew Luck, but Andrew Luck was already good before Harbaugh got him. We've really seen a struggle like Kaepernick. He got kind of worse with Harbaugh. These guys that we've seen, even Alex Smith, we haven't really seen Harbaugh develop a strong quarterback. So can he do that? So that's my biggest question mark. And in my prediction for next season, I just want to go 7-6, 8-5, and compete against Ohio State, maybe, which I don't think is going to happen, but I would like for it to be a close game. So why don't you tell me what your biggest question marks are, and then what is your prediction?
Yeah, one of the biggest question marks for me is I know we changed defenses from Don Brown, but the corners were just horrendous last year. So to see if they either get different guys in there or just change the coverage because they can't leave those guys on the island. And another thing that I just wonder is how the running back position is going to turn out. I know we kind of talked about that. The big things I want, maybe a little bit better in the record than you said, but I definitely compete with Ohio State, need to consistently be beating Michigan State. And actually, they need to be consistently, if not beating Penn State, keeping it close because they're kind of who we're trying to match up with because we're both trailing Ohio State by so much.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things where, and Penn State's been bad, right? They had a horrible year last year. They were worse than us. So when you're looking at that, how can we compete? But, going to triple overtime against Rutgers should not be happening. That's something that Michigan can't have be happening here. And I'm worried about Maryland. I don't know if you are, but I actually think that they're kind of a dark horse with Tagovailoa there. And they have kind of Raheem Jarrett, who could be the wide receiver one of that class. Maryland actually kind of scares me a little bit too. So I like to see the compete there. Now I want us to finish off on a high note because I know we're a little off on the Michigan Wolverines for next year. I want to kind of know who your favorite Wolverine is ever. I have mine, but I definitely don't want to steal yours, so I'm gonna let you go first, and you tell me there's a lot, but who has been your favorite Wolverine? I'm assuming you and me are around the same age, so I think we've kind of grown up with the same players. So, who is your guy? Who is your Wolverine that you're yeah, that's my guy?
So, this is kind of, it's, I guess, boring or whatever because, I'm sure a lot of people are like this, but My favorite has always been Charles Woodson. That was really getting to the age where I started really understanding football, and that championship year, everything with that. That was a guy that I just really loved, but kind of a not as known probably player would be Jason Avant, the wide receiver. He had great hands, but he played with Braylon, so he didn't get as much notoriety. But I loved him too.
Yeah, I like that. I like that guy. I my favorite guy is Braylon Edwards. So I know Braylon has his own issues. Trust me, I understand. Braylon's got his thing. That guy was a stud, guys. Like his last senior year at Michigan, he had 1,300 yards and 15 touchdowns. He was the last true, I feel like, wide receiver one, and he wore the number one, right? And hey, that's the Michigan tradition. Braylon was somebody. So in 2004, I was in high school at that time. He was someone that I was really high on. I love watching him play. I loved him as a pro. I think he underachieved. Obviously, we know that. But Braylon for me is that guy. And then I got to give a shout out to my guy Charles Woodson too. So that's who I'm getting out there. All right, why don't you tell us why don't you tell us exactly where we can find you? Where is your best? What do you got working on next, Brandon? Because you're kind of new to you're newish. I've seen you, and I'm glad we've been able to connect. So everybody listening, Brandon's really smart. I love his commentary. He's on Twitter. You can follow him at HeyB3, and definitely take a look at his Twitter. And he's always engaging in there. But what is next for you? What's your next content piece that you have coming out?
So like I said, I'm starting with IDP guys, and the first thing I'm currently just starting to work on is a piece on on Fitzmagic going to the Washington football team and how that kind of affects that offense. So that should be coming out, in the next week, and I'm sure for the league winners. I'm going to be writing some more rookie pieces because I've been really focusing on that. Some of the rookies that aren't being talked about as much, so not the first round guys, but ones you can probably get in the third or fourth round of your dynasty drafts.
Oh, okay. I'm interested. What do you think? Really quick? Let's give you a little sneak peek. What do you think of my boy Fitz? What do you think of him going there?
I love Fitzmagic. I didn't think they should have played Tua last year for injury, and he just looks better. I love Tua. I love Scary Terry for the Redskins, and this will be by far his best quarterback. And I think you'll see in my article a lot of the metrics and a lot of things that Fitzmagic has done. I'm really happy for him, to go to a team where he could get to start and might be the bridge quarterback. I don't know. Who knows? He might be like Brady and play till he's like 44, 45. So I think it'll be exciting for them.
Yeah, I'm worried because as a Cowboy fan, I do not want Washington to get a quarterback because they are right there. Like that team is mad. That defense is going to be great. They have a great offense. They need a quarterback, but I think that's a good bridge quarterback, like you said. I think that's guys. So I'm interested to read your piece. Definitely send it to me, and everybody out there, definitely find him and find his work. Definitely do that. So we appreciate you coming on, talking about our lowly Wolverines, our Michigan guys. Hopefully they can bring this back. But as far as Devy potential, I think the biggest thing is who can J.J. McCarthy be? And we're going to go as far as he takes us. And I think that he's got a lot of pressure for a 18-year-old freshman coming into Michigan Wolverines and trying to fix us. So as far as everything, if you're watching this on YouTube, we appreciate you. Please like, subscribe. We're getting up there, and we've had a lot of growth there. We appreciate it. On the podcast, please leave a review. Everything in there. We appreciate everybody out there that listens to us, and we hope you guys all have a great day. So thank you for joining us.
Did you get all that? If not, make sure you head over to hammercast.com, subscribe, and join the Hammer Nation. Until next time, keep grinding.